you going to share the recording of the sessions?
Yes.
But sir, you have, you have
I have
started.
started it now.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Sir, sir, I
Yes.
have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Swati here.
Yeah.
Sir, on appropriate sample and procedures, sir, there can be two type of questions. Like one wherein we are trying to study a phenomenon which has not been studied in organization but probably happening in organization. So in that case, I understand getting designing getting a sample can be easier because we can say it's happening. So on the other hand, we can say that organizations are not doing certain kind of things like that HR capability papers. So we are saying that dynamic capabilities are not being used, and therefore, I mean, it can impact patient care. So in that case, how do we reach out to appropriate sample, because we are saying that it's not being used?
It is, yeah, so it is, so dynamic, so HR capabilities are not being used in an organization, and you are saying that it will impact
patient care, sir.
It is, I would ideally say that you should have, it is okay, you can collect data from that organization where it is not happening, but at least there is a potential that this organization can actually can do these practices better, but it is perhaps not doing it this way, correct? So you can, you can actually say that the practices, the HR practices that the organization is following are poor HR practices. So you are saying that I am trying to look at the quality of the HR practice, right? And its impact on the outcome variable. So there you say that this organization is actually poor in having a competency framework or having a HR competency, HR capability framework, and therefore its impact on the outcome variables is poor. So at least it is a context where HR practices are happening, are existing. Maybe they are following a poor quality of that.
Okay.
As compared to, so again on this question, let's say you are talking about HR capabilities and HR practices, but you go to a very small, let's say SME, right? Small and medium enterprise, where there is no HR practices, HR practice.
Right.
They are not even doing any HR. Right now, that would be considered as perhaps an inappropriate sample because they are not even doing anything. So how are you measuring? Somebody can question you on that they don't do this kind of stuff. So you should have actually gone to an organization where there was a potential to do.
Yes.
Sir, I have a question.
So that is how you sort of justify your. You have to keep in mind that the sample that I am choosing is can actually this phenomena can take place in that sample.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sir, Devanshu is calling.
Yes.
You have just told that if you go a small SME where no HR practices is followed, is it practically possible to not follow any HR practice? It is embedded with the organizational functioning.
No, it is, if you go to SMEs, there is no such thing as small firms. It is very transactional. You just say you come work, I will pay you the wage, and there's no such thing as talent management. There's no such thing as really. So you will find that in small enterprises, the quality of HR is very, very transactional and what we call as administrative HR. There's no such thing as developmental or strategic HR there. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so the next thing was matching construct definitions with operationalizations. Now, remember yesterday I was talking about proposition and hypothesis. Proposition is a statement of relationship between constructs, whereas hypothesis is a statement of relationship between variables. And what are variables? Variables are nothing but operationalized constructs. What is an operationalized construct? When you are doing hypothesis testing, when you are going to do an empirical quantitative test, you need to understand how am I going to measure this construct, right? How am I going to, what is the instrument, what is the scale that I'm going to, what are the items that I'm going to use to measure, let's say, leadership or HR competency or engagement or motivation and so on. But if you have improper operationalization, that means you say I am going to measure motivation, but your scale actually measures, let's say, engagement, right? Now, this is where you have not matched construct definition with its operationalization. So usually somebody, a reviewer can come back to you and say that, you see, you are using this measure, but this measure does not actually measure motivation. This measure is actually a measure of engagement. And therefore, how can I believe that, believe what you are trying to say, believe the results that you have given when you have actually measured the construct wrongly? And therefore, I would like to mention at this place that whenever you are trying, whenever you are looking to identify measures or items through which you will measure your construct, please always refer to measures that are published in good journals. Okay, measures that are published in top ranked journals. Okay, because if you cite measures that are published in unknown journals, unlisted journals, journals which do not have a very high ranking, then the reviewers will not be convinced that your operationalizations of the constructs is proper and the way you have measured those constructs is right. And therefore, the reviewers will tell you that I will not believe what you are trying to tell me in your study, right? So therefore, you have to think about think very carefully, what are the measures, what are the journals I am referring to when I am trying to capture or measure the constructs that I have. The next thing here, yeah, inappropriate use of measures, inappropriate adaptation of measures. So inappropriate adaptation of measures, what is adaptation? Adaptation of measures is, let's say you have a scale published in a good journal, but the scale was published in the context of IT companies or in the context of IT settings. But now you are doing the study in a manufacturing setting. So you cannot use the same item, because that item perhaps said that I come to work daily, or I like my, not come to work daily, but it uses some words such as in IT context or IT work setting. Now you cannot use IT work setting in the item when you are measuring data in the manufacturing setting. So you will have to replace IT setting.
Example, we can have
IT setting
from
with manufacturing setting. Yes.
Example we can have as a home, work from home for IT people.
Yes, yeah. So you will have to adapt those measures. You will have to change few words in the items in order to suit or adapt those items to your specific context. So don't just copy blindly the items and say, if the item was developed for some other context and you are working in some other context, you will have to see whether you need to change few words. But in changing those words, let me also add, do not change the underlying meaning of the sentences. Okay, do not change the meaning of the sentences. You may have to tweak few words in order to make them suitable for the kind of context you are working. So adaptation means without changing the underlying meaning, you make the item suitable for your specific context, right?
Yeah, sir, Anu here. I have a question.
Yes.
Sir, in case, suppose there is a scale of Armstrong that is a well-defined scale for employee engagement. Now, in that case, employee engagement, whether it is IT firm or manufacturing firm, that can be applied.
Yes, absolutely. That is why the example that I gave initially, I took it back. If you are saying I come to work daily, I am engaged at work, that can be applied both in the IT setting and the manufacturing setting, right?
Okay.
But if you have some words which are specifically saying IT setting or manufacturing setting, and you are working in some using it for some other context, you will have to change those words, right?
So Farhat here. Sir,
Yes.
I have a question. Suppose we adapt one scale, like for example, for personality Bhargava scale, we use it. Now, can I make the changes in the words of that scale and still write that this is the same scale I'm using it?
Yes, but you will say I have adapted it from Bhargav or whatever, right? And they don't change the underlying meaning. I am repeating again. If you change the meaning of the item, then it means you are creating a new item. Okay.
So then how? I mean, if you don't want to change the meaning, then why would somebody change it then? I mean,
Why?
they can use it.
No,
Like suppose
you are saying I am working or you, let's say for a IT context, you say there is a possibility of working from home in my in IT setting or in IT work context. Say you want to use this item for manufacturing, you will say there is a possibility of work from home in manufacturing setting.
okay,
I have not changed the meaning. The meaning remains the same. I am still trying to test whether work from home is a possibility.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
But what have I done? I have said work from home is a possibility in IT setting, and I have changed it to work from home is possible in manufacturing setting. The
okay,
underlying meaning of the statements remain the same, but I have
yeah.
changed IT to manufacturing.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
But if you are saying if you, let's say you wanted to, you have changed the sentence to work from home is not needed in a manufacturing setting. Now what have you done? You were saying work from home is a possibility in IT setting. And now you have said work from home is not desirable in manufacturing setting. Now you have changed the meaning of the question, right? That is something that you should not do. That means now you have created a new item.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Lekha here. What if we want to make the English a little more easy?
Yes, that is adaptation.
That is okay.
That is adaptation. Without changing the underlying meaning, you can change words, but don't keep the meaning intact. That is where adaptation means. That is where adaptation comes in. Okay. Now,
Okay, sir. Thank you.
let me just stop here and
One more query from
yes, something.
Nandal.